What's up, everybody? It's PJ here with the SRNA drip, and I am back. This is my first video, I think, in 6 months, maybe. So I feel like it's only right that I say welcome back to season 2 of the SRNA drip. So today I'm going to talk about my first semester as a SRNA, and it is a lot to talk about. So let's get into it. Okay, so as you may know, I started school in January, my first semester in the CRNA school down in Augusta, Georgia, and I moved from Washington, D.C. Prior to that, I was a travel nurse for about a year, and then I took the last month off of freedom. I didn't work all of December, and it really was the best decision to do because I was able to kind of refresh and refocus on, what was next for me. I was able to have fun with my friends, I saw some family members that I hadn't seen in over 10 years, and as well as my parents, and made sure that I saw them before I made the move. So it really was a good decision for me to just take that last month off completely. Whew. Getting down here, I decided to drive. I didn't want to ship my car down. I had previously shipped my car from California to DC when I moved from California, and it was kind of expensive, and I knew that I wasn't going to be working, so I didn't really want to spend the money if it wasn't necessary. So I did drive down from DC to Georgia. And one thing about me, I'm not a big driver. I don't like to drive if I don't have to, especially anything over 2 hours. You can forget about it. So the drive itself was about, I want to say 8 hours. And the whole drive was about 8 hours, but it felt like it took 3 days to get out of Virginia. It just took so long to get out of Virginia. I never want to drive again, but if you've ever driven through Virginia, then you probably know what I'm talking about. But, it was a smooth ride. I got a little antsy towards the end, but I made it down here with no tickets. Thank God, because that would have been bad. But I got down here pretty successfully, made the transition very well, and hit the ground running with school. So let's talk about that. So we had a pretty, smooth orientation. I believe orientation was 3 days. We had a lot of presentations from different people, faculty members, head honchos in charge, and then it was like, okay, now go. So, we were all just exposed to so much information at one time from day one. And I think even on the first day of school, we had a quiz. So it was like, let's go. And throughout the first semester, there were a lot of unexpected changes that we were not expecting, of course. And it just goes to show that when I tell people, or when you hear program directors or people from different faculties say be flexible, or what does it mean to be flexible, it's not just talking about, okay, when I'm on the unit, how to be flexible with my patient if something changes. No, like this is like real life changing situations. So one of the first changes that happened is we were all excited to get to class and meet our professor, and Apple on the front desk, and our professor was like, well, I'm moving, so the class is gonna go online. And we're like, what? Online? I didn't sign up for that. So, well, you gotta be flexible. So we already had one class online. It was a DNP course, and 3 other classes were supposed to be in class, but our professor that had to move, he taught 2 classes, so we ended up having 3 classes online the first semester and 1 class in person. So that was a big change that we had to adjust to, but we made the transition very well. I think everybody, nobody really wanted to go online that much, but hey, what can you do? So that was one of the first big changes, unexpected changes that happened, and we just had to adapt to it. Okay, now I want to go over what my daily schedule was for the first semester. And it's a lot. It's gonna take a little bit of time to get through this. But I want to give you guys an insight of what it was like literally every day of the week. I mean, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Kind of what I did. And I wanted to do a video, like a vlog video, and I still have some recordings from it. I'm still thinking about piecing it together, but I've never vlogged before with, like, you know, walking around with the camera, so that's a little bit of a different dynamic for me. But I'm gonna try to piece that together too, because I think that was a good way to show you guys kind of what it was like to move about throughout my day. But let me just give you kind of like an outline of what I did day in and day out. So I'll wake up around 6 o'clock in the morning, do my morning routine in the bathroom, try to get myself together for the day because I already know it's gonna be a lot going forward. And then I try to leave the house around 6:20-ish, 6:30-ish, and try to get to school by 6:40, 6:50, so I can, you know, play the Hunger Games trying to find a decent parking spot, because it literally is horrible finding a parking spot early in the morning because everybody wants to park in the parking lot that's closest to the health building and the libraries, because if not, you have to park in a parking lot like down the street, catch a shuttle, and it was a lot. So you try to find the best parking spot early on. I try to get there, like I said, 6:40 to 6:50, and either try to find something to eat at the McDonald's, horrible idea, or just wait until the library opens at 7. That was actually a book that I had delivered. The doorbell rings is when I'm recording. But anyways, so yeah, I try to get to the library by 7. That's right when they open up, because then I have to play Hunger Games again to find a study room for my study group, since I'm probably usually the first one that gets there. So we try to find one of the isolated study rooms that we can kind of just like live at for the day. So I get there about 7, find a good study room, and then kind of start looking through whatever I had planned for the day. And then usually my study group, they get there around 8 o'clock, and we kind of figure out, you know, what needs to be done, what's due, you know, what chapters, we answer any questions, and then kind of do a scheduled approach to what to tackle for the day starting out. And having a schedule is actually very, very important, especially starting out, because it's just so much information. And I can't stress enough how much information it is at one time, that you have to have some type of structure. And even if you don't stick to it all the way through the semester, it's better to have it, to try to go back to it when you need to, than not have it at all. So one day we took about like 2 or 3 hours trying to come up with, you know, what makes the most sense as far as studying. Should we study the new material that's coming up, or when should we review the old material that we've already done? We planned out, you know, when our breaks would be, incorporated like class times, cadaver lab hours, and, you know, try to stick to that. Now I will say that once the end of the semester comes around, it's do or die bedside. It's you have to focus on whatever is due, you know, next, and you just kind of keep yourself afloat until, you know, the next test, the next quiz, whatever, because it's like constant back to back to back. And then usually we had class around 10 o'clock. If it was one of our online classes, then we would log into what we call Microsoft Teams. It's pretty much like a Zoom conference or a Skype, if you will. And we have live lecture with our professor, and you know, talk about the readings, talk about the PowerPoint that he had posted, and then if we have any questions, and then boom, that's class. And then you kind of jump back into study mode. Still in the library, you know, you don't really have to move too much unless we had to go to physical class for our one class that we had that was actually in person. And sometimes if we had to go to that one class that was actually in person, we would kind of leave some stuff in the room, like stuff that we wouldn't mind being stolen if that was the case, but I doubt that. But just stuff that we would leave in the room. So like if somebody peeked in, they would see that it was stuff actually in the room, and they wouldn't take our study room because we knew we were coming back and we would need a study room. And one thing about the health campus library, you have everybody in there and they're gonna want individual rooms. So it's literally like fighting for a room. You got to just make sure that you put your mark down and you kind of stay put the entire day until you're ready to leave, because as soon as you kind of peep out of the room, people are going to be on it to be like, are you leaving? Are you leaving? So you got to kind of, map it out to where you can keep your room. So after class, it will kind of be around lunchtime, and typically we try to bring our lunch because just to save money, but that's not always the case. But luckily, my campus is pretty close to a lot of restaurants. Not really the healthiest options, but there's like a Subway, there's a McDonald's, there's a Zaxby's, there's an A-Town Wings, there's a Firehouse Sub, there's a Little Caesars. Oh my God, I wore Little Caesars out so bad. Like I had to stop. I was blowing up. Like I was eating literally a box of pizza for lunch because it was cheap, it was quick, and I just needed to eat something. I didn't really care if it was healthy at the time, because when I first started the semester, I was meal prepping and taking my lunch and being healthy and broccoli and chicken breast, and child, by the time midterms came around towards the finals, it was whatever I could get my hands on at that point. Okay, so then after lunch, we would jump back into studying. If I was really drained, I would try to take a nap, especially if I had like a really bad lunch, like a Little Caesars or like a Zaxby's or like a big sub. I probably would take a nap, usually 30 minutes to an hour. But I mean, there's been times where I literally would put my head down and be like, okay, I'm just gonna take an hour nap, and it'd be like 3 hours later, and I'm like, oh damn, it's time to go. But I just was drained. It's just you have those days where you're just so drained you can't fathom to absorb any more information. And part of it is me eating a bad lunch too, but at the same time I really was just tired. So on a normal kind of schedule, take a little bit of a nap, wake back up, jump back into the books, bouncing between different subjects, bouncing ideas off of your study group members, asking questions, answering questions. Everybody's going to think differently, so you're trying to understand their way, they're trying to understand your way. What's the best way? Are you going to be able to retain the information? And you kind of do that until about 6 or 7 o'clock, and then everybody's like, I just can't do anymore. And then at that point, it's like, let's go home. But you try to be healthy, you try to exercise, you try to go to the gym. And it was working at first. I was doing fine. I was getting to the gym, doing a nice little workout, trying to keep the core tight, keep the body looking right. But like I said, towards the end of the semester, it was like, I don't have time. I need to go home and actually go to sleep so I can do this tomorrow. So after the gym, I would either head to the grocery store if I needed to buy groceries. There's like a Walmart literally on the way to school, and kind of on the same road as where I live. And I would stop by, get something to kind of meal prep when I got home. Get in the house. I would kind of put my stuff down. I would, if I had already meal prepped, I would make sure I have everything in the fridge together so I can just put it in a bag or something for the next day. If I had to cook, then I would go ahead and just cook, and I would eat before I took a shower. I have to do it before I take a shower, because if I took a shower and none of that stuff was done, it's not getting done until the morning. So, and then at that point, I'm up at the same time looking crazy because I don't have nothing to iron, I don't have nothing to wear, I ain't got no food prepped. Book bag is computer's all out, nothing's charged, so I have to make sure I do all of that stuff before I take a shower. That's kind of the last thing I want to do before I lay it on down for the next day. So I try to get all that stuff done, take a shower, get in the bed around 12, sometimes even 1 o'clock. I get usually on average 5 to 6 hours of sleep, and then jump back up and do it all again the next day. And that's literally Monday through Friday. Same thing, Monday through Friday. Now the weekends were a little bit different because The library schedule was a little bit different. I think it opened at like noon on Saturdays, or in like 9 to 5 on Fridays or something like that. So, I mean on Sundays, excuse me. So, we had a little bit of time to ourselves to try to make just time to just whatever we wanted to do in the mornings and then in the evenings on Sundays, because it was just like a big chunk of free time. And planning in that time to really have to yourself and be stress-free is very, very, very important, because you need it to make it through the semester. Because once the stress hits you, it's gonna slap you upside the head. And I'm gonna tell you about that, how it got me. And I've never been one to like be really anxious or stressed out about, a lot when I was in school, even when I was on the unit. Like, it just didn't really affect me too much. Now, there were times where it was, high stressful moments, and you handled it appropriately, but I never felt like the physical effects of it. And we'll talk about that too. But that was pretty much how the weekend went as far as studying. You get to the library, kind of same thing, just a shorter, condensed time frame of what you have available when the library is open. And then also on Thursdays we had cadaver labs, or every other Thursday we had cadaver labs for anatomy, where we got split up into 2 different groups, and each cadaver lab was about an hour and a half long. And then every Thursday that we went, we would kind of alternate which group went first, and we would pretty much leave after cadaver lab and kind of do what we needed to do, run any errands, because it was a weekday and we kind of had the time to kind of go places and get things done. And also, when you're in the cadaver lab, you're dealing with the cadavers. These are live cadavers, and you got the formaldehyde smell, and nobody wants to sit in the library in a room smelling like formaldehyde studying for 5 or 6 hours. It's just kind of uncomfortable. So we were like, all right, let's just cut it short on those days that we had cadaver lab. So that was my daily schedule. And I can't say that it was horrible, because I had kind of built up the routine, and I knew how my body would react certain times of the day. It was a routine. So, that was great. Another cool thing that we do at our school is called First Friday. And we just started doing it this year, where all 3 cohorts, the first year, second years, and third years, are pretty much under the same roof. And that rarely happens, because once you start clinical rotations, the summer of your second year, you really don't have to come back to campus until you graduate, essentially. So, it's just a time to get everybody, all 3 cohorts, 90 plus students, in one room, with the faculty, and you kind of chit chat, you mingle, you network. There's presentations from, guests for like financial planning. There are speakers about like the business aspects of anesthesia. And then the third years, they do presentations about like cool cases that they've encountered since they've been out in clinicals all over Georgia. And then for us, by us being complete newbies, we don't know what's going on. We're just sitting there nodding like, oh yeah, that's cool. No idea what they're talking about. Just sitting there essentially. But it was very informative. It was kind of cool to kind of see how they progressed, and the way they were talking, it was like, man, I don't know any of that now. And now, even in the second semester, one of my classmates brought the point up of, 4 or 5 months ago, we didn't know any of this stuff, and now to be able to understand and kind of comprehend, some of the things in anesthesia is like, you're making progress. So those times where you feel like, I don't know anything, you kind of look back and like, well, I do know something. So that was actually kind of rewarding to have that feeling of knowing that you're learning and you're progressing, and you might not be where you feel like you should be, but you're somewhere more than where you started. So that's a good way to look at it. Now, speaking of unexpected changes, Miss Rona, coronavirus, COVID-19, the Rona, whatever you want to call it, swept in, and Miss Rona hit Augusta pretty insidiously. It wasn't like a big boom, but it did, hit us to the point where when we closed down everything, we closed down everything. It's, you know, as far as the rest of Georgia closed down. And it threw everybody off. Now, I will say that the first year students, us, we had somewhat of an advantage to it because we were already used to taking classes online, 3 classes online. And, you know, the second years, they were not used to taking so many classes online, so it was a big adjustment for them. The third years, they're ready to go, so they're ready to finish up their clinical hours. Can't do that. They're kicked out of clinical. So everybody was affected by this in some way, shape, or form. And our director is just so great. Like, I remember we had meetings planned every day to like kind of address what was going on and any updates. A lot of times there were no updates, and we're just like, okay, well, anybody got any questions? Okay, no updates. We'll talk about it tomorrow. So we were kept pretty informed on the changes that were going on, when we were expected to go back to campus or go back to clinicals for the third years. And it was a rough time. And for us specifically, I know for me, my biggest issue was not being online for classes, because like I said, we were used to that, but having to study from home was something that I despised for many years, even when I was in nursing school. One, I try to keep home. Like, I don't really want to do too much studying. I want this to be the place where I relax and chill. I'll do all of that at the library, even if I have to stay until, you know, 11, 12 o'clock, or go to the health science building where it's open 24/7 and stay a little bit longer. But when I come home, I don't want to do any of that. So threw a wrench in that plan. So I had to adjust to being able to study at home. And it took a while, it took some growing pains. It took a lot of procrastination for me to be like, all right, I need to get my stuff together and realize that this is kind of what the norm is for right now, and just deal with it. So that was pretty much the biggest impact that coronavirus had on me specifically, was getting used to studying from home and when to actually get up and switch from being at home mode to being at school mode, and vice versa. So time progressed, and we were like, okay, looking at the cases rising, and you know, everybody's in a whole uproar. People are fighting over toilet paper and paper towels. Can't find any alcohol in the store. Can't find any hand sanitizer in the store. So me being, you know, crafty Kevin of things, I decided to make my own hand sanitizer. So I had to bought some pretty much, what was it, like 95% proof alcohol, and got some aloe vera gel in the little bottles from Walmart, and, you know, got up in the lab and did some things and made some alcohol, you know, hand sanitizer that I could have on me at all times. And tried to just keep my distance from people, which I will say Miss Rona helped out, because, I mean, Augusta already doesn't have any distractions anyway, but, you know, that was even more incentive to kind of stay put and put more time into studying without, you know, having the distractions of going out and, you know, going out to eat and all that kind of stuff. So that it helped in that way. You know, it was unfortunate of, you know, how we were not prepared for it, in a sense, meaning the country, but, you know, you had to do what you had to do to make it. So that's what I had to do. And Miss Rona also helped out my pockets, because we decided that we weren't going to have in-person class during the summer semester, which is the semester that I'm currently in. And that was great, because the school took out all of the fees that were associated with being on campus in person. So that added about another $2,000 to my pocket on the refund. So that was great. So that was really good to have. So, you know, there was some things that, you know, I couldn't really fault Miss Rona for. You know, she wreaked havoc across the nation, but, you know, if I had to look at the beauty in some things, that would be one of it. So then the second issue was, okay, well, how are we going to take our exams from home? Previously, what we would do, we had all the software on our laptops. On exam day, we would get there kind of super early and, you know, kind of try to simmer our brains down, go over information, as much as we could before we took our exam. And we would go into a room, we had our laptops, we had a proctor, one of the professors, and we would take our exam on like a lockdown browser and submit. We get our grades there. We see what questions we got wrong. We had the option to pretty much contest a question if we felt like we had proof behind why we answered it, or why we felt like the question was, not the best question. And if you prove your case, then you get the point. If the professor feels like it's gonna stand, then it's gonna stand. So yeah, that was that. But since Rona hit, we couldn't do that. We couldn't go on campus. So we had to find an alternative. First alternative was the professors proctored us, and they kind of split us all up into groups, and we were able to sign up for a time, like a 9 o'clock slot or a 1 o'clock slot. And it would be like 4 or 5 of us on a Microsoft Teams with the professor, and they would just watch us take our exam. That was okay for a little while, since our original plan was to use a program called Examity, where we go on, we schedule a time to take our exam, and a proctor from somewhere, I think in India, watches us, and to make sure that we're not cheating or there's no academic dishonesty, and then we would submit our test. Miss Rona shut down India, so Examity, they were shut down, so we had to figure something else out. So that's when we did the Microsoft Teams thing for a little bit, but I'm pretty sure that got exhausting and time consuming for the professors as well. So we started to use a program called Respondus lockdown browser, where we go through a whole TSA pre-check with our computer. That's what it felt like. To make sure that it was us, that we were taking the exam. We use our ID to show that it is us. We do an environment check with the computer, and then you take the exam while it's recording you, and it flags you. It doesn't tell you that it's flagging you, but it'll flag you if anything's suspicious, or you got bad connection. It can't really see you. It can't make eye contact with you. It'll flag you and send it to the professor for them to watch. Now, I was so scared to even move during the first exam that I took it on. I didn't even want to blink hard. I just felt like I was going to get flagged. I'm like, Lord, what is, like, it was kind of distracting in a way. But I mean, it is what it is. You kind of just get used to it and move forward. So that's kind of currently what we do now until next semester in the fall. We are, I think, planning to head back to campus, which is good because we start our techniques and technology class where we need to be hands-on. So I'm glad that hopefully we'll be opening back up to business as usual on campus, to where we can get that full experience, because that's going to be very important. So yeah, that was another big change that happened unexpectedly, and you just roll with the punches. So up until this time, I've been getting a lot of questions about what's the hardest part about anesthesia school, and what do you think what do you think about this situation, and I don't like math and I don't like science, what's the hardest thing? Honestly, the hardest part so far has been just managing the workload. Yes, some of the concepts are complex. And when you think about it and you talk it over and you get different viewpoints from your classmates or the professor, and you email, you can grasp the concept. But by the time you grasp that concept, you have about 6 other concepts lined up for one class. You got 4 more concepts up here ready to drop down at any minute from another class. You got 3 more concepts down here like, hey, I'm next. It's just so much at one time that you're always trying to scrap to get to the next thing. And that is, to me, the hardest part about school so far. And just trying to keep my mindset like, okay, a year and a half pretty much of didactic and then clinical. Like, I'm trying to, portion it out to say, let me just try to get through this first, and then get through this next, and then get through this next, because it really is a lot. And I think that is the hardest part for me. Somebody else might feel differently, but that is the hardest part for me. Now, the hardest class for the first semester, and I don't think I even wrote about this, I just thought about it. Concept-wise, as far as understanding the material and grasping the ins and outs and connecting the dots, would definitely be physiology. We split our anatomy and physiology class up a bit. The physiology portion was beast, because renal physiology, tough. The lungs, the heart, everything about physiology was just so complex, and it was so many numbers and different forces, and this pulls out, this goes in. It was just draining. And once you think you got the concept, you're like, oh, I got it. And then the next day comes, and you don't remember what you talked about the day before, and you got to go through it all over again. So it was a lot of repetition in order to get the concepts down. So I think complexity-wise, physiology was the toughest. Now, grade-wise, for me, chemistry almost took me out. And I'm gonna be real with y'all. Like, it was do or die, bedside time for chemistry for me, because I did not do well on my first exam at all. The first half of chemistry was inorganic chemistry, and then the second half was organic chemistry. From the information that we had in our chemistry, it wasn't too deep. I much rather preferred organic chemistry than inorganic chemistry. It came to me a little bit easier. And the funny thing is, the people who did really well in inorganic chemistry, the inorganic chemistry part, they hated organic chemistry. Now, they did pretty well, but they didn't like it. It didn't come to them as easy as inorganic did. And I was the complete opposite. Like, inorganic, it was too many formulas, too many numbers. I didn't like it. With organic chemistry, it was about naming the structures, knowing how they transform into other structures, and when they combine with certain things. It came to me easier, and it was easier for me to grasp the concept. It was almost like a game in a sense, and putting the pieces together. So I'm glad we did inorganic chemistry first, because when I completely bombed the first test, it really gave me an outline. Okay, this is what I need to do in order to be successful, and I was able to reach that level. Versus if I felt like I did really well in organic chemistry first, and then kind of left me in the blind side of how well I was going to do for inorganic, and clearly I didn't do that well. So that would have, I think, stressed me out a little bit more. When I tell you, chemistry sent me to the ER, it really did. And I'm gonna tell you what happened, tell you about that. So as time crunched down, and I was thinking this is what I need to do in order to pass, I started getting this anxiety, and I've never been the anxious type. And my heart was fluttering. I'm studying. And then I started having chest pain. I'm like, why am I having chest pain? I haven't really been working out. What's going on? That lasted for about 3 days, and I'm like, okay, something could possibly be wrong. And I'm like, I don't want to sleep on it, and then something really is wrong. So I waited, and then I finally went to the ER. I was like, let me just go to the ER and make sure everything was okay. And even though I didn't feel like something was truly wrong, I just wanted to make sure. I get to the ER, as much as I didn't want to go because of the whole COVID thing. Go to the ER, they're like, you here for COVID? I'm like, no, I'm here for chest pain. They're like, okay, what's going on? So I tell them what's going on. They do an EKG, the EKG is normal. That's really why I wanted to go. I wanted to make sure the EKG was normal, X-ray was normal. So I get to the back, and the doctor's like, okay, what's going on? I told him. He's like, you got any health history of it? I was like, no. He's like, your family got any health history of it? I was like, no. He was like, okay, well, you're probably not going to stay long. We're just going to do an X-ray and make sure It's clear, and then you're probably gonna go home. I was like, okay. So I pretty much just racked up a bill for no reason, but I didn't want to get into a habit of ignoring my body, especially because, like I said, I've never really had any physical stress symptoms before, so I didn't want to start off ignoring my body. And it's really important that you listen to your body throughout the semester. And even when I talked to some of my mentors, they were like, it's probably stress. And I'm like, really? Like, stress is giving me chest pain, like physical chest pain? They were like, yeah. And that's exactly what it was. And as soon as I finished my chemistry exam, the second one, the organic one, and I did well on it, like a day later, it just completely went away. I was like, wow. It was just crazy that the stress really was giving me chest pain like that. So, you know, and now I know, like, okay, this could possibly happen for, you know, next semester and semesters to come. So, you know, it's just learning my body under different stressful circumstances. So that was that. So stress tried to take me out. But anyways, made it on, haven't had any chest pain since then. So it kind of just confirmed that, you know, it was just stress related to school. So be on the lookout for that. Listen to your body. If something doesn't feel right, make sure that you know, investigate on it. Y'all are nurses, y'all are ICU nurses. You know when something is really like, you know, I think I'm good versus I should probably get this checked out. And I just felt like, you know, it was lasting for that long. I never had it happen before. I was like, let me just go ahead and get it checked out. Make sure the EKG is good, at least in the x-ray, and be done. Especially with corona. I was hearing sometimes chest pain was a symptom. You know, we got all these symptoms now from Miss Corona, so I wanted to make sure it was good. So that was that. Just make sure you plan out for some stress-free time. You're not gonna get much of it directly. You really have to plan to make sure that you are, you know, getting breaks and you're giving yourself breaks, because they don't come often at all. So just as important as it is to plan for studying, it's important to plan for some downtime or something that, you know, can take you away from the books for a little bit. Like I said, luckily Augusta doesn't have too many things going on that would distract me. So, you know, that's a good thing. And then aside from my classmates, I really only have like one friend here in Augusta, like literally. So I mean, I don't really have much to distract me anyway. I go fishing a lot, as y'all know. Starting to get back into doing videos, which is, you know, somewhat of, you know, a stress-free type of environment for me. And what else do I do? And I picked up playing video games again, just trying to do something else. Exercising, just trying to do something else to really get me away from the books when I need to. Also, an important thing, make sure that when you start school, like, everything is up to date. BLS, ACLS, PALS, your license. Make sure your license is up to date. If you leave the state, I don't care if you have a compact license. My advice would be to just get the license of that state, because I had an incident where they were trying to kick me out of school because I didn't have a Georgia license, even though I have a compact license and Georgia is now a part of the compact. They didn't recognize that. They wanted a Georgia license and had to do all this talking and running around. But I eventually got everything situated. They gave me like 3 days to get a license. I'm like, that's impossible. But I got everything situated out. It just was a little bit of a distraction from what I needed to be doing versus doing that. So just make sure you have everything up to date. Make sure that I would recommend you just go ahead and get the license for that state. Even if it's a compact, just go ahead and get the license of that state, and don't rely on, you know, your compact from another state to carry over to that state. So that is really like my experience with my first semester of CRNA school. And I'm gonna do some more videos, and they may allude to some things from the first semester, but I don't want to give all of y'all that. This is already a long video. I don't want to give you all the good stuff in one episode, okay? So I got some more good topics that I'm going to talk about, some more helpful things. that I want to share with y'all. So just make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share, and until next time, this is it. I'm gonna try to do some more, more frequent uploading. I know that's what y'all like. And yeah, with that being said, I'm out.